Shelby County Supervisors here on this August 1st. Does that have any conflict interest on the agenda today, guys?
Yeah. Okay.
Have a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Charlie, second by Bryce. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Approval of the minutes of July 18th. Any corrections or changes to that, Mark?
No, not since published.
Okay. Motion to approve the minutes for July 18th as presented.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Bryce, second by Charlie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Approval of the claims. Any questions on claims for this month?
No question. Motion approved.
Second.
Motion by Bryce. Jeepers. Motion by Charlie, second by Bryce. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carried. At this time, do I have a motion to recess our regular meeting and open a public hearing for the 2024 budget amendments?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Charlie, second by Bryce. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried.
I
Mr. Mark.
I haven't heard anything from anybody on these amendments because they don't affect property tax dollars, I'm guessing.
Can you get the few highlights we have there?
Sure.
The main reasons
There's
for
about
it.
$1,046,000 public health. I just increased their budget, what we have coming in by $200,000. Environmental health for well plugging. It seems like it's an annual deal, amending their budget because of well plugging. So they'll have $25,000 estimated more income. Then also the Harlan 28E for patrol income. That was not on the original budget. So we've got that in there. And then all of those are reversed on the expense side also. And the only other thing we have other than that on the reverse is $44,000. That's what we've got in the bank right now for opioid spending.
Right. Yep, we just proved that at the last meeting.
And then the ARPA, we had no idea how much money we were gonna have at the end of the year. And it's about $250,000 we have left, so that is added on expenses too.
Okay. And again, nothing's coming out of the general or rural basic, correct?
It'll be out of the general, but there's ins where there's outs.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as not taking our balance down any,
No.
okay? At this time, I'll open it up to any comments from the public on our budget amendments for today. Okay, seeing none, do I have a motion to close the hearing?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Charlie, second by Bryce. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Do we have a motion to approve the budget amendments?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Charlie, second by Bryce to approve the budget amendments for 2024 as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Okay, thanks, Mark. This time, we're gonna have a Southwest Iowa mental health update. Suzanne, why don't you come on up to the table here? Suzanne Watson is our director. Does an awesome job of keeping everything organized and makes the board look good. Welcome, good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. Nice to see you all.
Appreciate you taking the time to come up and
You bet.
talk about how the Southwest Iowa mental health has kind of not redistrict, but is looking different.
Yeah, wanted to update you on some changes. I'm sure Steve keeps you abreast on a lot of things as well. So just wanted to give you an overview of things with House File 471 that affected the counties. And I did bring some data on our crisis network and how Shelby County participates in that. And I will just tell you up front, they do a great job. So you guys are utilizing those services
Yep.
very well. So I'll go over some of those statistics. And just a few other things as far as what's going on in the state. So,
Okay, it's all yours.
all right. So, I guess the highlights of House File 471 were that our governing board always consisted of one member from every board of supervisors in our 9 counties. So now we're down to 6 of those. We were able to do that fairly easily. We had Monona County, Fremont County, and Page County that voluntarily said, yeah, we don't need a supervisor on that. They either have, like Page County already has 2 other representatives. Fremont County hopefully is going to put the law enforcement representative, so we have 2 new representatives. So they took off, they wanted a make sure there were no more than 50% boards of supervisors on the board. So in doing that, we had to go down to 6 boards of supervisors, and then they're adding a judicial position as well as a law enforcement position. So Fremont County has told us they're gonna put someone on the law enforcement. So I'm waiting to hear that name, and I haven't heard yet from Monona County on anything. So we'll probably be appointing that judicial.
Okay, kind of how that worked was if a county supervisor from that county wasn't on the board, then a parent or law enforcement or somebody, but there would be some representation from that county there. That's
Yeah,
our goal.
That's our goal. That's our goal, because we do not want to leave
And
any
just
county
for
out.
people who haven't been following it, when the state 2 years ago took away the property taxes, that was a good thing from each county funding the region. The state's doing it, so the state doesn't want, they want control, so they don't want supervisors or any county having more than 50%. So.
And, you know, it's been interesting that regionalization happened in 2014, so we're going on 9 years already. I will say administratively now, having all the money come into one place instead of having it go to the counties first and then me sending an invoice to all the counties, and that was a lot of back and forth. So I guess just from the administrative side, you know, just having those funds come from the state does work. But we can, our biggest thing is we still want a lot of information back and forth from our boards of
Participation.
Yes, we want, our counties are so important, because if things start going wrong, or if your constituents have issues with mental health, or if the state does something where they take some control away from the region governing boards, you're the ones that are gonna hear it first. So, or they're gonna go to your general assistant. So that, you know, it's always they're gonna come to the counties if there becomes a problem and things. So, so far it's going well with, you know, those state funds. There's lots of things happening though on a state level right now that it's just unpredictable. Once again, mental health, as you know, over the last 25 years has never stayed the same for more than maybe 4 years. And so there's always
Well,
a
you see that more than anybody.
big upset.
Right in the
So
trenches.
yeah, so another thing that's happening with House File 471 was that they are going to have regions do what they're calling outpatient competency restoration. We don't know exactly what that means at this point, other than if a person is found incompetent to stand trial. I think usually what happens in the 4th Judicial District, because we're not finding many statistics, it's mostly in Polk County that there's any sort of restoration trying to happen. So the restoration is that they've been found incompetent. The idea is you restore them to competency again so they can then stand trial. So I think what usually happens is people are either released or they're put in a facility for a long time due to other things outside of their criminal issue. So we don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but the regions will be working really closely with the state on developing that, looking at what other states do for that. So that's one of the other changes to the House File 471. So yeah, any questions about that, those changes? Or okay. Well, I want to talk about how Shelby County is utilizing our crisis access network. Just basically that's our way into any crisis service that the region provides. So I will tell you that I had Molly do some little statistics for us here. Molly's our data person, does a wonderful job, has kind of led the state to, and I don't know if anybody wants to see any of these, I have 2 copies. She's been a big part of the collecting data statewide. One of the big things that the Health and Human Services, you know, is looking at is statewide data and how do we make sure that we're all doing things the same across the state. So we just pulled out a few things that we thought were interesting. So Shelby County is 6% of the population in the region. And not that this next statistic has anything to do with the regions, it was just some interesting information we wanted to pull out. So 13% of the individuals under current mental health committals are in Shelby County. So that probably just says that the judicial side of things is not closing out mental health commitments as fast as maybe some other places in the state. So below it says request for mental health crisis response team is what the MHCRT is. And then next to it is completed interventions of that service. So you can see that in Shelby County, you've requested mental health crisis response 11% of the time. And so the 12% is the completed intervention. So that being a percent higher, it just means that when the mental health crisis response team is called out here, it's usually necessary for them to actually complete that intervention. So Shelby County is doing better than others as far as recognizing when there might need to be that service called out. But obviously you guys are using it a lot compared to the percent overall population, so that's great. I know Sheriff Gross and his team have been very involved. And
Out of the jail.
yeah,
Yep.
and out of the jail, so yeah, it's been really good. So just some other statistics on mobile crisis response is that we complete all the interventions. So Harlan Family Service is the one that has the mental health crisis response team. They do a lot of it via telehealth, mostly via telehealth in the rural counties, just because you cannot get therapists 24 hours a day throughout the entire, so it's working really well. So they see people quickly. That really doesn't, the average minutes to complete the intervention is 48 minutes, but they're usually on a call with folks within 5 to 8 minutes. So it's pretty quick. So you're also using it now at your hospital. So just within the last year, MER2 has started using the mobile crisis team when people come in the ER and they're not sure if it's a mental health crisis, if they need to find an inpatient behavioral health bed for them. Our team will come in via telehealth. They'll set them up with a front of a computer screen. Harlan Family Service will do kind of a crisis assessment, determine what level of care they need, and then go on from there. So that's been a really good partnership with all of our local hospitals, and I think a big help to those emergency rooms. And then the last thing on here was services. So we've got our crisis stabilization residential services, which is a mouthful, but basically we have crisis services that are in Clarinda. We have a 8-bed facility. In Council Bluffs, we have 4 beds that are crisis stabilization. So that is for somebody who doesn't quite need an inpatient bed, but they really can't, they're not feeling safe at home. There's something going on at home that's causing them a lot of extra stress. So they can come to one of these facilities, stay 3 to 5 days, get therapy every day, make sure their meds are where they need to be, help them work through that crisis and help them get back to the point they were before they entered their crisis. So so you can see that about 4% of the referrals come from your county, and 5% of the actual admissions. So I guess that's the important number there. And then we are continuing to expand those services. So we just started, we're calling it Anywhere Crisis Care because it was really confusing. It's actually called community-based crisis services. It was too confusing with CSRS and the CBCRS or whatever. So really that's a service that we're hoping we can continue to build up. Our ACT team that is located with Lonnie in her office, their team will provide that crisis care. So it's the same as if you would go into that residential facility I was just talking about, but they come to you wherever you are. So as long as it's a safe environment, they can come out, provide that therapy every day, and kind of do that case management with people. And we'll have that for kids and adults. We're working with Children's Square right now on building that children's service throughout the region too. So I think that when that gets going, that's going to be where we really can kind of see a big difference. So
We need more staff for that?
yeah, so and the region did invest quite a bit of money to help them get staff. So they've been trying to open their crisis residential service Council Bluffs for the last year and a half, and they have been so short on staff for their shelter and just all their programs. They have a PMIC, a Psychiatric Medical Institute for Children. So real high level kids. They have 24 beds. They've only been able to staff 8. So they weren't paying well. So we gave them some funds to help increase their pay, as well as do a lot more training with staff so they can keep them when they come. So they actually are almost full staff now, and they'll be opening.
Awesome.
Yeah, they'll be opening in September. So for their crisis service. So that'll be a big deal when that happens. So yeah, any questions on the crisis services or anything that you're seeing that we can help with more? We just kind of continue to build them and
What, you need anything from Shelby County? Or
just keep
citizen
using
group?
the services. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing is
And they have, and
Yeah.
the guys have been really good about that.
they have, yeah.
And see the benefit.
Yes. Well, and that's the other thing is, and I don't need to make this plea to you, I have this on the other agenda for other counties, but we are having a crisis intervention training again in September, so you've sent a lot of officers to that, and it's been great, and they've seen the benefits of it. So crisis intervention is for law enforcement, and a 40-hour training. It's an intense training, and you've sent people from your jail and from the deputies. So, and I think you've got 4 people coming again from the jail this time. So you're fully utilizing that, and that's something the region completely pays for. It's about $25,000 of training. So we're happy to do that and provide that to the sheriff's office. It's been a big benefit for those that have taken advantage. We're trying to spread the word throughout the whole region. So. The other thing I wanted to make sure, and I don't know if we can help in spread the word about 988 anymore. I know sometimes people still don't know what 988 is, but that's the crisis number for the state, well, for the whole country now. So if you guys need any media stuff, or we can help pull some stuff down from their website, let us know, but we're really trying to make sure people do know 988. That's really the entrance to our crisis services. If somebody calls that number statewide, they'll be able to get them to our mobile crisis team. And most of the time, I think they said 90.
Do you have like a public notice on that or something?
No, we don't have public notice, but there are, from the SAMHSA website, there's information you can pull down for like anything you can throw on your own website.
Sure.
Just some media stuff.
Maybe if Lonnie could get something and
Yeah.
get it to Taryn and get her on our website.
And we've got some big posters, I guess
Okay.
we've gotten from them too. So we just want to make sure the public's really aware that that's the crisis
That's a
number.
good point.
First I've heard of it.
Yeah, see, people just don't know, and I
Maybe
think,
put something in the paper
It
too.
would be.
Yeah.
It really would be.
yeah,
Maybe see if Lonnie could
yeah,
follow through with
I
that.
will. And it's a text and a chat
Okay.
and a phone call as well. So that's the nice thing too, because you know a lot of people would prefer to just
Right.
chat or text. So,
Okay.
but that's working pretty well. So I think they said 93% of people who call don't need anything further beyond talking to somebody on the phone, and then they will be able to hook people up with the mobile crisis team and things. So.
Okay.
The other thing I want to make you aware of is the Health and Human Services Alignment Study. There's a couple big things going on with the Department of Human Services, right? Or said it wrong. Health and Human Services now, right? Big name change. So they are looking at, now that they've aligned, or they've got all of these departments under them, they've brought in a lot more departments. So they are currently in the process, and they're going to have their first kind of study information results out in the fall. But they're looking at things like the mental health regions, public health, aging, maternal and child health, WIC, public health, I think I already said that, emergency preparedness regions, community action agencies, DCAT. They're looking at all these programs that now fall under Health and Human Services. And they're trying to see where we might duplicate each other, where they could streamline things, and how you can get better access to people in general. So for instance, I think like for our crossovers, I think maybe public health with them doing the substance, they do a lot of the substance use stuff at the state level, but even things like when public health goes out and does their every 3 year evaluation of the community, a lot of times the number one issue that comes up is mental health. So, you know, those should just be coming to the region saying, hey, can we work on something for mental health in our communities? So it's going to be interesting what this report shows. I think one of the things that it will do, nobody likes to talk about maps, but with them having all these different agencies now under the state, one could assume that you would want your maps to look similar, right? You wouldn't want, if they were all under your right, you want our region map
Talking common sense.
to look, I am. And so that's probably one of the things the regions keep asking is we kind of have this, you know, threat over our heads since they've become, you know, it's the state's taken over the funding of it, is what's our map gonna look like? Are you gonna change the region map? And so at the same time, they're also looking at certified community behavioral health clinics as a new model for delivering mental health. Right now we have, there's so many acronyms, community mental health centers. So it's kind of the same, but it's like a model where you make sure you're providing all the mental health services to people in your communities. And so they're also looking at that, and they're looking at maps for that. So it's just one of those things that, you know, it could end up, the map that we saw for that, it was our region stayed the same, and we added Crawford County. So, and the region,
We hope so.
4-county region next to us. So it doesn't change a whole lot, but we just don't know. So that could be something that comes up, is that our region might end up changing. I have a feeling if it happens, it'll happen pretty quick, and it would, I think,
ask you that.
potentially as quick as next legislative session, but the state doesn't like talking about it when we ask them, so they say they have no plans. So I don't know. Yeah, so a lot's happening, and I guess mostly good.
Yes. Is there any questions?
Doing a good job.
Sounds great. Appreciate all that you do.
Yeah, let Steve or Lonnie or
Thank you.
myself know anytime there's questions, or if there's any needs that you have, and we'll see what we can do.
Okay.
All right,
Thanks for taking the time.
thank you.
Thanks. Committee reports. You guys have any committee reports?
No.
Okay, we'll move on. Reporter's quarterly report, fees collected, authorized chairperson to sign.
That's been, it's given to me quarterly and signed, and usually she does a report, but things have happened, and she's just asking for or I'm asking for your authorization to have the chairperson.
And she
sign
went
this.
over that the last time she was
Yeah.
here too. Have a motion to allow the chairperson to sign the quarterly report.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Bryce, second by Charlie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you, Mark. Todd Beleen, Shelby County Chamber update. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Morning, Todd.
Kind of just a quick update today. One of the things, and we've kind of been echoing this message for like the last 2 years, but once again, we need some blood drive donations throughout the county. So we have one coming up August 5th at the Shelby Community Building. It's going to run from 8 to 1. And you can call Nikki Hill over there at 422-2928. But coming in, right now, supplies are low. I don't know if you get the same messages I get from them, but they'll give you anything they've got on the shelf. Feel just many give them a pint of blood right now. So, yeah. So if we can get folks over there.
Good notice.
And then a week from Thursday, on August 10th, there's going to be a meeting out at Iowa Western Community College. They're calling it a campus conversation. It's just going to run from 1 to 2. But what this is they're looking for community members, employers, school district representatives, county representatives. They just want input as to, okay, again, looking at the big vision here, what do we as a community want from the community college? What are we looking for them to provide as far as educational opportunities, as far as what we're seeing for needs, whether it's, again, we talk about CDL a lot, we talk about diesel mechanics a lot, but, you know, other things that we need. And President Kenney just said that the tour is gonna be done so that the Board of Trustees and the administration can get a really good feel for, okay, where do we need to be making our investments as a community college over the next, 5 years to support the communities that they're in. So, again, that's 1 to 2, Thursday the 10th, and anybody who can make it.
I'm gonna be out of town for a few days then. Could one of you guys try to show up to that? Otherwise, I let Lori know that I wouldn't be there.
Okay.
One
I'll
of you
check
two
my
can
calendar, I
try.
think I.
Okay,
Yeah, me too, I'll have to check too.
okay. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Didn't mean to interrupt time.
No, it's fine, it's fine. And then just keep your eye out, we'll be making some announcements soon. You've seen the 3 new retail spaces here within the city of Harlan are moving along very quickly.
They are.
And so we're looking to have some ribbon cuttings here real soon. And another one that we'll be adding, we might actually hold it here in Harlan, but Kennedy Brothers Plumbing in Shelby. So now, so we have a new plumbing service, commercial residential service here in Shelby County, which is great to have. And so we're just waiting for them to give us the heads up, probably when they crawl out from underneath whatever they're doing, because I'm sure they're really busy right now. And we'll have them maybe over in our conference room or something, just so we can introduce the community to them and everybody can get to know who they are.
Okay.
That's it for the chamber for right now.
Okay.
All right.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you, sir. Brandon, secondary road report. We got a few things need approved today. Good morning.
So for your approval, we have a couple of plan sets here. The first is slurry seal or joint sealing. We've done this every other year for the past several years. If you drive one of our asphalt roads, there's little joint coverings that are darker than the rest of the road. It levels up those joints really well and keeps, if you don't do that, every joint, the semis pound them and it elongates that and makes for a really rough ride and opens the joints up really wide. So this gets that sealed. The plan on here is to do F32 from Harrison County and then jog over and do it all the way to M47. F24 from Irwin east to the county line and F58 from Tennant over to Elkhorn.
Okay.
The estimate on that is about $270,000. So that's, we'll see. The prices have been nuts, just like everything else. So we'll see how we hit it. I kind of put some
When will
extra.
that be?
It'll let in November.
November.
Yes. Yes. And then the other plan set, if you're okay with.
Yeah, we'll do it
approving them
together.
At the same time. It's just pavement markings on all the hard surface roads. Try to get those done every other year as well.
Yeah, I've had a few people ask about that.
Yep, so it'll be next year. We've been doing them every 2 years. The 1 year during COVID, they couldn't get paint. We had to go 3 years because
Okay.
we let it, and then we had to, the DOT said you shall give them till next year to get it done. So had to give them a year off, and yeah, we're not gonna go 3 years again if we can help it.
No.
Because doesn't work very well, but the estimate on that is about $70,000. And all of that is farm to market money. There's no local money in this, so
Okay.
it was programmed and it's all budgeted for out of our.
So you got
farm to
everything
market.
all ready to go?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That motion to approve the slurry seal and the pavement markings?
Motion?
Second.
Motion by Charlie, second by Bryce. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Brief update. Mark, are we ready to go here?
Yep, you just use the arrow keys.
Okay.
Do what you need to do. Here, I'll
So
move this one. I don't
North
have this one set.
Northwest Landscape started on F24 last Tuesday, and they did edge drain, and they finished Friday, so they moved right along. I was out there a couple of the days, I took some pictures. So the machine in the front is the tiling machine. I had a video, but I couldn't get it to work. But it cuts a 36-inch trench there, right on the edge of the pavement. And then it's actually got an auger, so it loads all that they waste the shoulder material to the side, as you can see with the maintainer, and then they dig the dirt out of the shoulder there. And then there's a lot of happy people along F-24, they got dump truck loads of dirt. So that goes, and then there's a paving machine that's retrofitted. You can kind of see the spool behind it. So it puts the tile in the trench, and then they back a dump truck full of limestone chip up to that and dump it in. And it goes about 150 feet per dump truck load, so there was a lot of dump truck loads of rock there. Just a better idea of kind of a better side profile there. And then this has the rock in it, and then this Bobcat's got a vibratory roller on it, and it packs the rock. And then in the background there's a maintainer that puts the shoulder material back on top, and it's done. So
Pretty slick.
yeah, they, to be able to do it in 3.5, 4 days, they,
Well, don't have to worry about rain around here.
well, and they know what they're doing. I mean, they moved right along. So I think you can see in this picture, kind of to the right side, they had a mini excavator. That's how they put the outlets in. So that kind of moved along with them. And
Good.
that's done. Now we're just waiting for Western. Still thinking the end of August, but I haven't seen them start on their mobile plant, and that's going to be by the bacon plant. So
Okay.
they bought the east building down there for storage. It's going to be across the road from there.
Oh, okay.
And where they did that stover
Yep.
and stuff down there in the past. So
So they bought that?
yes, yep.
Oh,
So we'll see. End of August is what we're hearing. It's going to coincide with 59 somehow,
Yeah. Well,
but yeah.
getting closer.
Yeah, I figured it'll be, hey, we want to start next week kind of thing, so.
Okay.
And then the other pictures I have, the bridge crew was working on the Spillway Bridge. They finished that up last week. They're up on 2000th and Ginkgo,
Okay.
ripping the bridge out today as we speak. Took some,
Anything to salvage out of there?
there's steel beams
Okay.
in 2 of the 3 spans that'll
Okay.
salvage. The rest of it will go straight to Carroll and get put in a hole. So this is the bridge that was there, and pretty embargoed, about half legal loads, as you can see. It's 104 feet. It had 1 span of steel, 2 spans of wood in it, all wood piling. Here's the new bridge.
Wow.
Shortened it up to 60 feet, and it's still wood deck, but nice guardrail. And here's the profile of the old bridge, and here's the new
Wow.
bridge.
Has it been given a name?
I'm not sure what the name is, Bryce. I'm sure it has a name, but I'm not sure what the name is. I should ask Jake that. I'll report back at the
All right,
next meeting.
thanks.
I gotta say, I am so glad we have a bridge crew here in the county, because when I go to state meetings and even our 4 county meetings, a lot of counties don't have that.
Right.
And they get a lot of things done that we don't need a huge crew in for, and they do a really good job.
Right,
So,
right, they'll do 2
So
of
the guys
these.
were very appreciative. A lot of times when it's in your own backyard, you take it for granted, but
Right,
we're lucky here.
right. So this is looking at the north pier and abutment. You can see some of the piling had failed, and we did some retrofitting. We put concrete collars on 2 of those piling there. And then here's the north abutment now. So
Nice.
drastic improvement, hold everything back with sheet piling, and yeah, legal bridge for many years. And then we're trying, it's not done yet, but State Build's been seal coating these bridge decks. It's something we just started trying a couple years ago to try to prolong the life of the plank. I think we're gonna get twice the, and have them seal it every 4 or 5 years. Costs us about $1,200. So it just, I think it'll prolong the plank very well. That's the end of my pictures.
Okay.
Let me get you back to the agenda,
Oh,
Mark.
thanks.
So, like I said, they're moving up to 2000th and Ginkgo. One of the excavator crews is on M56 up by Botna. We're currently pulling in M56. We're able to get water from Co-op in Irwin, so but we can't pull in right now unless we get water, and they have a well and they're letting us use it. So,
Okay.
excavator crew's kind of doing some ditching and cleaning up after, behind them pulling that in. And then the other One is on Umbrella, North F-24, replacing that twin wood box with an 84. They should have sheet piling, the pipe, and hopefully the head walls poured by the end of the week. So next week we can strip them and start backfilling. And then crew just today, or the bridge crew left their excavator down at the bridge, and then there's a wood box right to the north. They're replacing that today. North of that bridge, had a pretty good sized hole in the road, so it was time to get that into place. So.
Okay.
Just finishing a load of rock out of Denison today, Steve, and then end of the week, all our piles should be full.
Is that going to piles or on the road?
It's going to piles right now. It's going to Harlan, and we're mixing it with some gravel, and then it's going to N56 as we
Okay.
pull it in. So
Okay.
that's kind of the plan. If it would have rained, it would have switched, and we would put it straight on the road.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Gotcha.
dry for that right now. So
Okay.
that's all I have for today.
What about the utility permit, Winstream?
I had that on there as a maybe,
Maybe.
and they didn't get everything they needed, so.
Okay,
not
maybe
ready for
next
that.
meeting?
Potentially.
Okay. Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Published intentions for public measure of the ballot for November 7th for EMS essential services.
Would you like me to read it?
Go ahead.
Resolution?
Yeah.
It's a resolution to direct the County Commissioner of Elections to submit the question of adopting a levy and imposing a voter-approved emergency medical services ad valorem property tax and local option income tax pursuant to Iowa Code Chapter 422D, whereas the Shelby County Board of Supervisors declared emergency medical services to be an essential service pursuant to Resolution 2023-29, adopted on June 13, 2023, recognizing EMS is an essential service to preserve the health, safety, and welfare of Shelby County citizens. And whereas the board appointed the Shelby County EMS System Advisory Council to provide guidance to the county on how to preserve and improve the local EMS system. And whereas the Advisory Council advised the Board of Supervisors of the steps to preserve and improve the county EMS system, including a recommendation for additional funding to the system through an ad valorem tax and local option income tax pursuant to Iowa Code Chapter 422D. Now therefore be it resolved by the Shelby County Board of Supervisors that the following proposition is approved, and the Board of Supervisors shall file the proposition for ballot with the Shelby County Commissioner of Elections at least 60 days prior to the election. And the public measure will read, shall the following public measure be adopted? It's yes or no. And shall the Shelby County Board of Supervisors, upon recommendation by the Shelby County EMS Advisory Council for the purpose of funding emergency medical services in Shelby County, including but not limited to ambulance service, personnel and equipment, be authorized for a period of 15 years to levy and impose a local option income surtax of 1% upon the state individual income tax of each individual taxpayer resident in Shelby County on December 31st for each calendar year commencing with the calendar year 2024. And levy and impose an ad valorem tax not exceeding 75 cents per $1,000 of assessed valuation on all taxable property within Shelby County, commencing with the levy of property taxes for collection in the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025. Now the wording is, and that's the end of the ballot language. The wording on that says, it's confusing, it says $1,000 of assessed valuation. It is on, in layman's term, it's on what can be taxed. It's not on the assessed.
It's on taxes.
So don't let that confuse you, even though we're required to put it in there like that. It says assessed valuation on all taxable property. They make us say it that way.
I know Marcus looked at this, and Alex, but when you talk about commencing, shouldn't that be like 2039 or something like that?
For what?
For when it's ending? Or am I looking at that wrong? It's not the 15 years?
I took that as when it was gonna start taking into effect.
Yeah. Commencing,
Okay,
starting with the levy of property taxes for collection in fiscal year ending.
24.
So
Oh,
it's
you're
gonna-
up above. The individual income tax will start on the December 31st, what you turn in for in 2024, so it'd be your 2024
Right,
tax
okay,
return.
yeah, right, because we're a year and a half behind. Okay, okay,
Yeah.
yep, okay. Thank you.
No, those are great questions. And
Any-
Those are the questions.
Do
and
you guys have any questions or?
If anybody has any questions, the public, anybody, please call my office and
Okay,
I can walk anybody through it.
like I said, we've had several set of eyes look at it and everybody seemed to be good. Alex, you have anything?
I was just gonna say, I know, the advisory council did look at it. I sent it out to them as well, and they tried to look through.
Yep, and I know Marcus has looked at it too, so. Okay, okay. Thank you, Mark. Do I have a motion to approve the public measure for ballot on November 7th?
Motion?
Second.
Motion by Bryce, second by Charlie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you. Update on pipeline litigation and county IUB intervention process. Mr. Tim Whipple is our legal counsel from Allers. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Come on up here to the
Hi, Tim.
chair. Been a little while. You've probably never been in here before, have you?
No, we usually are at that
Ferguson Center or Vets Auditorium or the hospital or...
Yeah,
Oh,
all
welcome,
over.
regular.
This is a smaller group of people this time.
Got a couch though. That's good.
Yep. Appreciate you coming over.
Yep. So there's a lot going on with
No.
these pipelines. So you all have intervened with the Iowa Utilities Board, and there's a lot going on there. And I'm really the one taking the lead, kind of managing everything that's going on with the Utilities Board. But there are also 6 different lawsuits filed by 2 different pipelines against 4 different counties, all in federal court. And so there's a lot going on there, and my partner Jason Craig has really been taking the lead, managing the issues in the litigation. Those things come together, you know, over the issues of zoning. And we are making arguments about zoning to both the Utilities Board and to the federal courts as we try to carve a path, a role for counties in having a say over where this goes in the county. I think there's a misperception, and the media kind of covers it sometimes, like the counties are fighting the pipelines.
Right.
I don't think that's ever been true. I don't think you've ever said that. I don't think you all have said that as an official government body, but that's your goal.
We want to use setbacks to get into proper corridor.
Right. And so I think we've made clear in our filings that there's a way to do both things, for the pipeline to be built and for counties to have the traditional role that they play in land use in counties. If counties aren't allowed to have the role that they traditionally play, it puts you in a difficult position with existing uses and with future uses. And so we've been trying to make those arguments to both the federal court and to the Utilities Board. There have been a lot of kind of back and forth filings made lately. Let me cover the Utilities Board first, and then I'll cover
Okay.
litigation unless you want to do it the other way around.
No.
And I will summarize some of the public developments now, and then talk about, I guess, specific strategies with you all when we move into closed session, if that's okay.
Yep.
The landowners in the Utilities Board proceedings are represented by an attorney by the name of Brian Jordy. And they've all kind of grouped themselves together in a coalition, and they're sharing costs and using one attorney in the same way the counties have done with our. And they are often in alignment with the strategies that we're pursuing at the Utilities Board, and so we find we'll make a filing that they support, or they make a filing that we support, but we're not 100% aligned. One of the things that they did file was a motion to dismiss Summit's petition on the basis that carbon dioxide in these pipelines would be in what's called a supercritical phase rather than a liquid phase. And Iowa law says that the Utilities Board can only permit hazardous liquid pipelines. So there was an issue raised about whether supercritical is a liquid. And we supported as counties, the group of counties that are working together, that's 7 counties at this point in the Utilities Board proceedings. We made a filing in support of the motion to dismiss, at least asking the Utilities Board to take up and consider that issue prior to the hearing beginning. The landowners, I mean, it's a difficult argument to win, is I guess the way I'll put it, but they're entitled to have it heard and considered. It's a serious argument in my view, one that the courts should maybe take a look at. This week, the Utilities Board denied that petition. I do expect the landowners to try to seek further review. I don't know when or what their arguments will be yet, but they are up against the wall, I think. That's how I characterize it, but the hearing begins in August, on August 22nd, and that was a surprise to many of them. That was a change to the Utilities Board's timeline.
Couple months.
They moved it up on them. And I think there were a lot of people who thought the board would follow the same process that it followed with the last pipeline that it permitted, which was Dakota Access, and that they would make the company present its case first and then start all the landowner testimony. That's the traditional way to do it in litigation. The plaintiff goes first, the prosecution goes first. Well, that's Summit in this case, because they're the ones seeking the permit, and they, as we say, have the burden of proving their case. And so I think the landowners assumed, some of them, that Summit would be made to present their evidence first, and then the landowners could make their response. But the board, they flipped that. And it said, the reason we're doing that is you all are farmers and say you don't want to have this hearing during harvest. Well, we're going to take you at your word, but we're going to move it up to August instead of to January or February. I think the landowners would have preferred that it begin in January or February. Instead, it's going to begin in August. So that accelerates the timeline for them, for the development of their witnesses and the presentation of their evidence. So there's a lot of frustration over speeding that up, and I think many on the side of the landowners would prefer that the traditional order be restored and that they be allowed to move later in the process. So that's why I expect there to be some attempt to resist as much as they can the beginning of the hearing in August. But right now it's set to begin August 22nd.
Will they have an opportunity after Summit speaks to rebuttal that?
Yeah, so the board is kind of chopping this up. The landowners that have formally intervened, the way that counties have, and become a legal party to the proceedings, won't begin in August. They will begin after Summit's testimony. But there's a lot of other landowners that haven't hired an attorney, didn't file an intervention. They're allowed to participate and come in and present evidence to the board, but the evidence they can present is limited, and they have to begin in August.
Okay.
So we don't know how long. In terms of counties, we're presenting a case too, and our case is really focused on county issues. We're not raising the same issues landowners are raising. We're not raising the same issues that the ethanol plants who've also intervened are raising. It's a complex, multi-party piece of litigation is what it really is. And in order to scope it, we're trying to focus on county issues. County zoning, we have a zoning expert who's provided some really thorough testimony on the law of zoning and the particular zoning regulations in each of the 7 counties. County inspections, we have a county inspector. You all have hired ISG, and in working closely with ISG, they had some experience permitting Dakota Access, and they had some particular experiences that they thought could help improve the permit once it's issued. So we've got the county inspection witness. County emergency response. We've tried to pull together the lead emergency responder from Mississippi, who, on behalf of Yazoo County, there were 2 counties impacted, but on behalf of Yazoo County, his name's Jack Willingham. He was willing to be a witness for counties and talk about what it takes to get them ready and what happens if you're not. And so we have some good testimony on that. There are other issues being raised related to ethanol and grain markets and the economics of it. And we aren't really bringing that part of the case. Others are. But I think before it's done, those will also be important. So each of the parties is kind of focusing on things that
Taking
are
a different lead.
taking lead on different things. I can stop there and answer any questions. I guess the one other thing I would add, in the IUB recently, former Congressman Steve King tried to intervene. And he was denied intervention, but is seeking to have that reconsidered. And in the middle of all of that, his attorney, who was formerly working for the Attorney General's office during this whole proceeding, she quit the Attorney General's office and decided she wanted to represent Steve King instead. And the Attorney General's office believes she has a conflict and they're resisting her attempt to represent Steve King. But before the board could decide whether or not she would be allowed to represent Steve King, they filed a motion to strike all of the safety testimony that Summit had filed. And we filed a motion in support of that because Summit up till now has taken the position that safety is not relevant. And they've argued that very, very strongly. It's not, they tell you that you can't consider safety. They tell the board that they can't consider safety, that's PHMSA only. But then when they filed other testimony, they include a lot of safety information. So Steve King said, well, that's not right. You know, if it's not relevant, you shouldn't be allowed to offer that evidence. So right now there's a motion to get rid of all of that testimony. That's in front of the board. There are fights at the board over motions to compel different types of information. The agreements between Summit and the ethanol companies are being requested. And so there was a hearing with an administrative law judge yesterday. That issue isn't decided yet. Summit provided those attorneys' eyes only, but made redactions. The Farm Bureau and the counties and landowners and the Sierra Club all would like to see the unredacted versions as we try to.
Pretty important.
It's important to get at the issue of is there public convenience and necessity. We really need to know as a state how much will the pipelines benefit the state. Will they benefit it as much as the company says they will, or will they not? And the agreements, our cases, are an important part of that. So we're arguing about that. The Sierra Club has moved once again to try to get dispersion modeling from the company. They have steadfastly refused to provide that to you or to the board. I think that's one thing I'd like to discuss with you. I imagine you want to support the effort to get the dispersion modeling, and so we can support that effort as well. I haven't yet made that filing. I don't think we'll get it. I think we'll be in a motion to compel over that. There's very little common ground here amongst the parties. The information isn't being provided and is wanted. People are disagreeing about the scope of the proceedings, about
They'll get it to us
the
after they
state.
start construction.
And some of these issues may never be settled. They may not be decided by the board. They may not be appealed. We'll really need to, in closed session, talk about what you want to focus on through the rest of the proceeding. On the federal side of the litigation, the chief judge in the Southern District, which is where your case is, granted a preliminary injunction to Summit, and on the basis for it was that it was preempted by state law, impliedly preempted, and we have some disagreements and concerns about the rationale offered for that we can talk about. But one thing we were clear about is that we think the Iowa Supreme Court is the correct body to interpret Iowa law. And so we requested that this judge certify the question to the Iowa Supreme Court and let them answer it. And she refused to do that this week. So we have some decisions to make in closed session about how you want to respond to that as well. So.
Okay. I've been asked you this before, with IUB, how long a process do you see that happening with, there's over 1,000 landowners that could intervene and speak, and all the testimony that's coming? Will they get through that before the first of the year?
It's really hard to tell, to be honest with you. Some things are happening in this particular case that, frankly, I've never seen at the Utilities Board. They don't permit a lot of these pipelines. We permitted Dakota Access as a state, but before that had been many years. And so there's not as much experience among the people that do this in terms of which parties, how much evidence, which witnesses, what issues. So with the carbon pipelines, it's the first one that's been permitted in Iowa. So in certain sense, like the state, everybody involved in this is building the ship as we sail it. So you see things, for example, like this time around, many more landowners have intervened and are filing testimony. And the testimony that they're filing is sometimes, just for perspective, our longest witness testimony is our zoning testimony, and it's about 45 pages of testimony. This, unlike in court, where the witnesses take the stand and they do a verbal question and answer. At the Utilities Board, they make you file it all in written form. And it's meant to speed up the hearing process. So everybody has to file it in written form. Well, the landowners were filing 400 and 500 pages worth of testimony each. So, and there were dozens and dozens of landowners who filed testimony. There's so much of it, frankly, that I don't think I can read it all before the hearing. It's just so much to get through. It begins on August 22nd, and there's dozens of thousands of pages.
Right. And our utility boards, they have other business to handle every day too.
They do, and they've got to read it all. Wow. So I don't know how that will impact the proceeding. I don't know how that'll impact the cross-examinations during the hearing. I don't know how long it will delay the hearing process itself. I don't know how long it will delay the board's final decision and order in the case. But the amount of evidence and the length of the hearing could affect the timeline before it's done. I don't even want to guess about how much or how. At this point, it's really hard to know.
Okay.
Other things that could impact the timeline are these various fights over evidence that could result in judicial cases prior to the final decision by the board, depending on what different parties try to do or how they feel aggrieved, which could potentially result in a stay, but could potentially not. So it bears watching from our standpoint of in terms of managing our case and our presentation of our witnesses. Obviously, if the landowners get a stay, then we can kind of take a break and pause, have a little more time to read their testimony and wait while other issues get litigated. It'll take kind of constant management. There's just a lot happening.
Have they said yet, do they meet, once this starts at 22nd, they meet every day in Fort Dodge, or is it once a week, or?
They haven't said yet.
Man.
Which makes it really hard to plan. I don't yet know whether, my plan at this point, my intention at this point is to go to Fort Dodge that first week and watch and observe how the process begins with the landowners, and then make a decision about whether we need to be there during that phase of the trial. Because our witnesses won't be up.
Right.
We are entitled to cross-examine any of those landowners. And so if any of them are Shelby County landowners or Emmett County landowners or Kossuth County landowners, all of them are part of our county coalition, if we If we want to ask specific questions related to the land in our counties and our land use, we can do that of those landowners. Or we can just kind of let them present their own case about their land.
Okay.
The position, I would say, generally of the other counties tends to be pretty sympathetic to the landowners, and many have filed letters in opposition to eminent domain. But to this point, we haven't made eminent domain a core issue because we don't have any county control
No,
over
we
it.
have no control over it.
So that's one thing we can discuss about the extent, we want to engage with those landowners during the hearing process.
Okay. Okay. Any questions for Tim for now? Otherwise, we're gonna go into closed session. Nothing? So at this time, we're gonna enter closed session, Iowa Code 21.5. We need to read,
I would read it.
Okay. To discuss strategy from counsel in matters that are presently in litigation or where litigation is imminent and where its disclosure would be likely to prejudge or disadvantage the position of the government body in litigation, and in accordance with Iowa Code Section 622.10, to discuss attorney-client privilege and attorney work product matters with legal counsel. So thanks everybody for coming today.